All right. Good morning, everybody. It's May 2nd. Welcome to the working the sorry, the Ag Robotics Working Group meeting. Um, we'll start off with some new membership. I see here Christian Muse. I hope I pronounced that right, is on.
Spot on.
Christian, would you mind introducing yourself to the group? What brings you here and
Sure, yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Christian Muse. I'm an assistant professor at Queen's University here in Kingston, Ontario. My main specialty is in artificial intelligence of various forms, and I've done a lot of things over the years in different sort of subfields. And I guess most recently, me and another professor who specializes in evolutionary computing decided to build, as a centerpiece to our lab, a fully automated vertical farm using aeroponics in the center of our space. And so we've secured the money and we've started the build and we're putting things together. We don't have any students working on it yet. And so I guess I'm here just to see the lay of the land across the province, across the country, and see what's going on in sort of cutting edge of automated agriculture. So I guess that's my take on it. Nice to meet you all.
excellent. Nice to meet you as well, and thanks so much for joining us. Next, I see that oh, and they just posted in the chat, Calvin Busky is joining us today. No mic or camera, but says they're helping de-risking the use of spectroscopy in ag and agri-food. Today has new miniaturized handheld devices that are less than $20,000. Um, all right, perfect. Thanks, Calvin. We appreciate that. Uh, hopefully one of these days we can chat with you. Um, I believe, taking a look at everybody, I believe I got our new members. Is there anybody who is here for the first time and or hasn't had the chance to introduce themselves and would like to? Nathan.
Uh, oh,
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dan. Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Battersby. I'm from Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst. We are a National Center for Cybersecurity at Toronto Metropolitan University. Um, we are working quite closely with the agri-food sector moving forward under funding that we've received from the Ontario government. Our focus is helping the sector better integrate cybersecurity into the technology that's being used in the space. And so this working group is a great place for us to learn more about the conversations you folks are having, the needs of the sector as it relates to cybersecurity. If it's a topic of conversation that we're having on a regular basis, especially in the robotic space, and then looking for opportunities where we can help by bringing our best-in-class cybersecurity startups forward to solve any technical problems being faced in the space as it relates to cybersecurity. So really happy to be here. Really excited to learn here at this forum and also potentially add value at some point.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that intro, Nathan. And see a bunch of hands shot up, so that's awesome. Glad to have so many faces here. Leah, we'll head over to you.
Hi, thanks very much. Good morning. My name is Thea Weaver. I'm with the Northern Ontario Farm Innovation Alliance, also known as NOFIA. My colleague Rachel Kehoe is here on the line. She was added to the group by Barry Potter, an outgoing OMAFA rep who has been active in this space. So we're here to just stay abreast of what's going on in Southern Ontario technological development and how we can apply and communicate that to Northern Ontario farmers. I'm the project development advisor with the group. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Glad to have you here. Janice.
Hi, I'm with Arrowfood Food Institute at the University of Guelph and also farm down in the Bothwell area, down the road from Haggerty Creek. And just here to stay up to date and learn.
Wonderful. This is a good place to do that, so welcome. And I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly. Visante?
Yes, don't worry, that's okay.
Hi, Maureen, Dan. I think we met this week during a bootcamp that we had with, I don't know why my, hold on 1 second, I think it's coming. But we met this week in the growth. We didn't have enough time to chat, but well, I'm from SK Gutelius. We do, we started working with the mining
Sorry,
sector.
sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. Your microphone is very broken and choppy. You're not coming through very clear.
Oh, sorry about that. So let me write it on the chat.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Sorry about that. It's just can't really understand. Kasala.
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. So I recently met Joe Dales. Hi Joe, I see that here. And he invited me to join the group. I'm an innovation advisor with Innovation Canada, which is part of a federal portfolio of Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada, I said for short. So I work across Southern Ontario, supporting Canadian companies in agri-tech, agri-food sector, looking to access various government support programs, whether it's grants, capital financing, R&D support, export. You're setting up a testing or a manufacturing facility somewhere in Canada, or you're looking to sell to government of Canada. So with the various different needs, we support you to access those programs at the right time. And happy to be here.
Excellent. Happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining. Chris.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Van Hobel from Nova Scotia, but currently joining you from northern Alberta. I am a grower producer, former dairy and beef farmer, and now growing sweet corn. Have an IT background and been extremely interested in agrobotics and automation and technology. And for 2025, I have been awarded a Nuffield Canada scholarship / research grant to look into automation, robotics, and technology and how it impacts farmers, increases efficiencies, decreased costs, and addresses issues and barriers such as right to repair and labor shortages.
Excellent. Sounds like you fit right in with us here. Happy to have you. And then lastly, we'll head over to James.
Thanks. Yeah, first time here. Thanks, Jason from Haggerty for inviting me. I grew up on a farm, in Ontario, close to Owen Sound. I got a background now. I left the farm a while back. Got a PhD in artificial intelligence and computer science and stuff like that, and co-founded a robotics company doing warehouse robots, like with arms and grippers and stuff. And that was about 10 years ago. And so after 10 years of that, I left. And so now I'm kind of between things. And I had a great chat with Jason at the Discover Ontario a couple of weeks ago, and or Discovery X, and yeah, he told me about this group, and I'm interested in robotics product development opportunities, and engineering for them, and sort of getting back into that space. And so I'm curious kind of what this group is about and what I can contribute to it.
Excellent.
Not sure yet.
Well, that's all right.
Not a grower.
Oh, hey, that's okay. Not everybody here is.
More of a
But,
programmer.
we're happy to have you, and happy to see how you can fit in here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for those introductions. And with that, we'll head into the meat and potatoes of our meeting this morning. So I'll pass things over to Brian Lynch from Vineland Research and Innovation Center. Brian, sorry, just muted that. Brian's here to speak to us on the challenges and opportunities with technology adoption in horticulture.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so let me just share my screen here. Uh-oh. Hit the wrong button. Great. So I'm just going to assume everyone can see this okay. Scream at me if you guys don't see a red flashy screen, and just ignore this map except me popping up. Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about like Dan mentioned, adoption challenges, opportunities. For those of you who don't know me, I am the director of the technology program here at Vineland Research and Innovation Center. It used to be called automation, but I guess that wasn't enough letters. So now it's horticultural technology solutions. If you're not familiar with Vineland, it's a not-for-profit private company that we primarily offer research services. When I joined Vineland 6 years ago, did a lot of strategic research, but we're trying to be a little more sustainable with that. And so, yeah, we run a lot of experiments for companies who want to trial new things, new technologies, new substrates for plants, new products, and so on. 200 plus acres of farm, greenhouse, orchards, grapes, field crops, about 75 people strong, and 5 different programs covering basically all aspects of horticulture. So I won't use the time today to present Vineland. So let's get into the topics.
Hey, Brian. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. Just before you start, we're finding your voice coming through a little bit quiet.
Is it really? Okay.
Might just be the mic proximity to your
Let me
to your
just,
face or something.
how is it right now?
That sounds better.
Is it way better? Okay. Let me just make sure I got the sensitivity up or something like that. Okay, yeah, just scream at me if that becomes another issue.
Sure thing. Appreciate it.
Okay, so let's get into it. So I kind of felt like calling these facts. I don't think I'm authorized to call them facts, but overall, I think we'd all agree, just generally, whether we're talking about horticulture or not, technology is getting better. Humanity is using more and more technology over years, decades, centuries. It's getting cheaper, and I put like ... sort of, right? Because tech gets cheaper, but then we integrate it into bigger products that themselves are more expensive. And so, yeah, there's obviously an evolution happening. I think we'd all agree on this, and that we're not going backwards. We're going to be moving forward no matter what. But I just spent the past 12, 16 months doing lots of interviews and little talks where I had the title, Where Are the Robots? Right. So there's a lot of tech that's out there. There's numerous products. We've seen a lot of them through the working group here. Products that are sort of out there being piloted, products that are more validated and actually making a lot more sales. But you drive around, you go into a greenhouse, you cross a field. It's not super obvious. You don't just see them out there like you might in some sci-fi movie showing all this autonomous tech in say a farm. So what's going on? Like what's the problem here? Is there a problem, or are we just kind of being impatient? Is it just a matter of time, or is it happening? It's just not as visible. Well, I think there is a bit of a problem, and that we need to sort of catch up. We need to figure out this adoption thing and trickle it back to how we properly develop and sell these technologies. A lot of the challenges, I think a lot of us here would probably sort of nod along with most of this stuff. Probably the biggest one is ROI, which is kind of blending the cost and performance thing. So a lot of this new tech that we're offering to growers is expensive, and it's not necessarily super obvious whether or not it is. I'm just going to hide the zoom. There we go. Yeah, not super obvious if it has that positive ROI, if the payback period is fast enough. I know from talking to growers, they're not necessarily comfortable with sort of the as a service model, whether it's software or robotics. They'd rather treat robotics, especially like a capital expenditure, rather than an ongoing monthly subscription fee. Reliability, trust, how this stuff all integrates into existing systems. A lot of growers don't want to be first. So who's the early adopter? And then just generally change management, right? I mean, do you really want to go through all the trouble to do this, to adopt this technology, if it's not like a huge game changer? And then definitely something that we might not think about till we really get going, but service and support. And something breaks on a farm today, a lot of growers have the tools that they need to fix it. Whereas with this new tech, is that the case? And then in terms of robotics, right, on the side of developing it, what kind of challenges are a little more unique just to how you make this stuff work? Data. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort, really, to get the kind of data that you want to train vision systems or other AI systems. And do you want to wait multiple seasons? Do you have to do that for each grower? The plants are so different. There's a lot of variability. So, I mean, that impacts how much data you're going to collect, but it also means that, you have to be really careful about how you set up robotics to work in these scenarios, right? It's not like building a robot that's going to just sit on an assembly line and do the exact same thing for the exact same parts within, micron accuracy every time. I personally think sense of touch is a huge blocker for a lot of the stuff we're trying to do in this industry. And we're pretty far off from getting robotics to be able to do that. And I back when I made this slide a while back for another presentation, I basically asked one of the AI image generators to give me a picture of someone wearing oven mittens and using tongs to harvest some tomatoes, because that's kind of what the robot's doing effectively without really being able to use a sense of touch. And then suitability here, just because a lot of robot arms that we're looking at have sub-millimeter accuracy and repeatability, but you don't necessarily need that. And yet the idea of getting a custom built arm for your ag robot that's going to be cheaper is kind of prohibitive in a way. And I've talked to companies that have actually said that's what we're doing. And I thought that's crazy. And they said, yeah, well, there's a lot of manufacturers, but they're not looking at developing something specific for us, or it's going to be expensive to do it. And then I've got a screenshot of one of the big dog robots or spot robots from Boston Dynamics slipping on a banana, just because this is iterative, right? How do you develop something and then go use it? In this world, no, we have to go try these things in the real world and then learn lessons and come back, reiterate to adjust the system and fix problems and bugs and gremlins, which is tricky, right? Because then you're kind of putting it all out there in front of growers, because where else are you going to try this other than in operations? So a couple of years ago, our consumer insights team interviewed a number of different stakeholders, mostly on the side of tech developers, just to get their perspectives, right? And I'm not going to go through these two charts through every bullet point, but you can read it and you can kind of see ROI standing out. We're looking at, based on the left, just challenges period in developing these systems, and then on the right, a little more obvious in the heading, reasons for growers not adopting, ROI top, right? And so there's a recognition that a lot of these companies, they recognize that these issues exist, and they know the challenge ahead of them. And then someone here made this sort of word cloud, and a big thing that popped out was validation, right? And so the idea of, yes, closing that loop on the iterative design, being able to validate the tech, be able to do it without sort of risking reputation, how to collaborate properly with growers at the right time, and other people in the industry. And of course, all that's necessary to make it successful and to drive the cost down to put the right price tag on it. I threw a couple of sort of tongue-in-cheek little meme things here. I don't know if anyone, I'm a big Mike Judge fan, so Office Space is one of my favorites. But I also kind of think that I sometimes feel like us in this industry trying to develop tech and get it out there to growers, it's in a way it's heavy on the technology push, where I think we're all driven by, hey, there's an opportunity here. So high level, there's a market pull for things. Yes, labor or energy efficiency, but more so on the side of saying, well, hey, look, geez, we've got AI now, and we've got multi-spec cameras, and we've got, look at all the data you can pull out of this, and we see opportunities to fit the right pieces of tech together. But we definitely have to be asking ourselves, are we actually solving a problem that will speak to growers' needs, or are we more saying, hey, there's an opportunity to layer something extra on top? You skip to the bottom, and Chuck, I don't know if you're on the call now, but Chuck threw this quote at me, which I tried chasing down. I found it from some Jim Collins, and also goes back to Voltaire, but good is the enemy of great. And if you look up this saying, and maybe you've heard it before, it doesn't exactly have the meaning that I think Chuck and I were talking about on this, but really at the end of the day, right now, if things are good enough, that's a problem for us trying to bring in new tech that's going to make things better, right? Because it really better be a lot better, because that sort of idea of change management can get in the way. And yeah, how are we talking to growers about this stuff? How are we selling this? And I'll show some pictures in a minute that I kind of find a bit funny in that direction. But basically overall, as we develop this technology, we always have to make sure that it's going to make growers nod along going, yes, you're solving a problem for me, rather than, hey, you're trying to sell me something that is just bringing something extra to the table, which itself is not bad. It's just that it's a harder sell, right? So this is what I mean by some of these pictures. So if you go on Google, search for articles, you find stuff on LinkedIn, you're just sort of on top of the latest stuff that's coming out there on different websites. You see a lot of pictures like this, and I'll show more in a second. And hopefully everyone's already noticed that this is basically the same picture with something different photoshopped on top of it, right? Okay, here's some plants, and let's put some robots in front of it, and this is the future, right? Or there's always someone holding a tablet or an iPhone. No, this is the future. This is where we're going. Oh, automation and AI, robotics. This was me saying that Google Gemini, give me an image of a greenhouse robot. None of these look like what you'd expect. In fact, the one in the top right, I think, is really scary looking, but maybe it might be cool to see in a greenhouse or in the field. But this is the kind of imagery, this is the kind of message you almost see painting this picture of what the future is going to look like. And I think that any of us that are actually developing this tech would all kind of agree that, whoa, easy. This is a little bit on the sci-fi side of things. I had this one recently up on a slide show for Ontario craft wineries. And again, on the left column, you see the same picture being reused, but with new things in front of it, photoshopped in. A lot of blue. I guess we big Tron fans or something of that kind of cayenne kind of color. Hexagons are big favorite, little logos, right? Just throw this stuff and say, oh, you point your iPhone at it, and you're going to get all this information. And it's not really wrong, right? Because I think we'd all agree that, how else do you try to convey the message that, there's information there, there's insights to be had, and there's some tech that's going to get that out of your crop, out of your process, right? But again, when growers see this as invoking that is actually invoking what we want them to think about the kind of tech that we're talking about. But I don't want this to sound all negative, right? There's, I only threw up 4 examples here. There's lots more out there, but there are some examples of companies that are not just raising money necessarily as success, or making headway and paving runway, but actually really seeing successful adoption, acquisition, and so on. So we know this is possible, right? It's just trying to figure out, well, what are they getting right? And I think a lot of what these companies are getting right that are successful is really focus, right? And iteration in collaboration with growers, and trying to get out there as early as possible to make sure that the tech is really fitting into the overall system in operation. And then on our side, developing things, some of the stuff that I always think about is, well, yeah, of course, validation testing, we talked about that, but taking advantage of digital twins and simulation wherever possible, because it's tricky to get out there, and it takes time. So can we take advantage of more of that? focus and standardization. I just mentioned the word focus. I think overall, I think we'd all agree. Maybe some of you on the call are better off than me, but did anyone have a different car to go to the grocery store, and another car to go to the pharmacy, and another car to go to work? No, right? So the idea of, say, robots, do we really expect growers to adopt, a fleet of robots, each one doing a single task, right? And even if they are getting multiple technologies, I mean, I think they would be absolutely in the right to say, well, why aren't these talking to each other? How are they integrating together? And so standardization, and trying to make sure that we're, as an industry, not building a collection of different little tiny products that we're pitching towards growers, but something that will all integrate together at the end of the day. And then something I'll talk more about later on, this idea of adaptation and transformation. And I'll just put, while speaking to this slide, I'll just basically say, the picture here kind of shows it almost, maybe the plants have to move to the robot, not the other way around. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. So idea of transformation in a little bit. So what's Vineland's strategy? I asked Google Gemini I played with it a little while to basically get a propaganda style poster image that I could add to this slide. But we have aimed to do technology validation for a little while now, and it's been sort of successful, but not as successful as I think that we'd like. Basically inviting companies to come here and pay for our services to validate technology properly, to get it out into our field, into our orchard, into our greenhouse, and to actually put it through its paces and assess its performance, so that you can walk away with insights on what you need to change, if anything, or you can walk away with basically sort of the golden seal of approval, third-party validation that this stuff does what we are saying it does. But we've sort of realized that I don't think that's good enough. That's not what tech companies need. So what we're aiming to do now is more put the grower first in that process. The tactics on how to do this, we're still fleshing it out. So I won't get into too much detail about how exactly we're doing this, but essentially, instead of getting companies to come to Vineland to validate the tech and walk away with that kind of like report that they can then show off later on, ideally they're walking away with a relationship with the grower. They're walking away with having basically set up some sales, marketing, the business development side that they're getting out of that process. So that's one thing. Another thing is, I've struggled with this for a couple of years. And if you know Vineland and how we operate, you sort of nod along with this, but a lot of what happens here is not in tech space. And when, at Vineland, we use tech to even mean different varieties of plants, but tech is my program. We have variety development. We have, the pest and disease stuff, consumer insights, plant production, soils, and so on. So a lot of the experiments, a lot of the projects that happen here are for companies that they want to try some new fertilizer or some new, like I said earlier, a new substrate in the greenhouse, a new biostimulant or something like that. And so they need a specific crop grown to do that. You need to start from the beginning, apply a treatment to the crop, have a control crop, be able to compare them, and so on. So it's sort of like the default at Vineland is always, well, for projects, we grow the crop for the project. And I've always struggled with that because, if you want to try out your technology, if you want to validate it, if you want to develop it and be able to iteratively test it, you don't want to come to Vineland and hear me say, okay, so it's going to cost this much because we have to grow the crop specifically for you, right? Because you're going to compare that to, well, wait a minute, I shouldn't be able to call up someone, make a connection, get on someone's farm. Hopefully they're nice enough, but we test out there. And there's reasons why that has its negatives, of course. So really what I've been aiming to do, and we're starting to pick up on this, is do shared trials. So I'd like to just have crops going, just like you'd expect at any farm you're going to try to visit and test out your technology. And then companies can come in and we just can, recover the costs as small contributions from each company who's actually able to participate in that trial or make use of that crop. So that's something that we're starting now. We're going to be doing high wire tomatoes in the greenhouse in December. We're aiming to do something with strawberries in the greenhouse in next January. And this summer, we'll be doing a bunch of stuff in the field through our OCI program, which I have a couple slides at the end. And then lastly, this transformative vision, which has been on my mind for a while since being in the middle of running a cucumber harvesting robot development project. And that's that idea, right? Of, maybe we're not just parachuting tech in to the current paradigm. Maybe we have to sort of change things about how we grow the plants, what varieties, what's infrastructure, right? That idea, maybe the plants have to move to the robots. So talking a little bit about that, this paradigm shift, I'm a big fan of this paleo futurism, which is really the idea of looking back at the way people used to think of the future. And this is actually from a series of little like postcard style drawings. Says en l'an 2000, in the year 2000. I think this was stuff commissioned for the 1900 Paris Fair. And there's a ton of these you can find. I just picked this one out there, and it's just people are just trying to envision what the future is going to look like, right? And what do you see here? You see sort of like a mechanical automated orchestra at the opera, right? So this was their vision of, oh yeah, you won't have the orchestra pit. No, you're gonna have it's gonna be automated. But they're not envisioning speakers, right? And the audio tech way up in the back with the electronic version of this. No, they're envisioning they're extrapolating based on the way industrial revolution has gone at that point and the mechanization side of the automation, right? So I always worry, is that what we're doing, right? If you skip back to some of those pictures I shared earlier, will people in the future look at that and go, oh, geez, look at what they thought it was going to look like, right? That's hilarious that they used to think that that's the way the future is going to look for this industry. And, so another idea there is, we need to build the car, not the robot horse, right? So we need to, right now, potentially what we're doing is a lot of developing the robot horse. We're trying to automate the piece of it that is not automated and not necessarily shifting the entire product. Now, of course, maybe you call the car basically a robot horse, but Ford didn't sort of put together a horse machine pulling a cart. It's an engine and it's driving the wheels themselves, right? So we need to maybe think that way about how we're developing this technology. And then I love throwing out some examples of where it's kind of gone like that. So you can see on the left, an automated bank teller. Is it a robot that's behind the counter at a bank? No, it's an ATM, right? Automated car hop. Just generally the idea of, hey, let's put a window on the side of the restaurant. You can drive up to it, right? So changing the infrastructure. And then same thing, there's your robot holding the door open for you. No, wait, it's a sensor and there's motors in the door. So just overall that idea of, how we change the way we're growing the plants, whether, spacing rows, how high beds are up off the ground and so on. What kind of plants, what varieties. And I've had conversations with some of the big seed companies where they're actually trying to pick my brain on what would you want to see in that cucumber plant to make it easier for the robot to pick? Smaller leaves, longer stems? Because they so far have developed new plant varieties with traits for, say, disease mitigation or yield. But we can do better. And every time I see someone investing in breaking new ground for a new farm, new greenhouse, and so on, I'm always thinking, oh, gee, I hope they made the doors big enough for the robots to fit through, or hope they have enough Wi-Fi, hope they have enough power distribution and so on. And it's already kind of happened, right? I mean, center pivot irrigation sort of was a way of modifying how you're growing the plants to accommodate more efficient irrigation. 2D apple orchards are, not necessarily meant for technology, more meant for humans, but at the same time, they're perfect for robots. You've simplified how the problem is set up. Now the technology can more easily be adapted to fit that. And then on the right, it's just a cucumber crop that's a high wire grown. So it's an easier way to to work with the crop. And these things are not necessarily done for robotics, but they're examples of where we've changed the way we're growing plants, and the result is it's easier to make technology work in that framework. I think that's a couple last slides just on this OCI program. This slide's got too much text. I just copy pasted in here. You guys heard me speak a couple weeks ago on this OCI program. Feel free to connect with me if you're curious to know more about this. And then just putting, oh, I don't know why this is showing up as 2, but June 20th, Friday, we're going to be having a demo day here, and I'm coordinating with Bridget. As you know, we've been talking about how to sort of get the work group potentially to be there in person for that. And yeah, so anyone who wants to attend this, please reach out. I think if you try this QR code, it should work. I copied this from our business development team. But if you're interested in participating, joining in, you don't have to be a part of the OCI program to come here and see this, or even to come here, bring some tech to show off. So just reach out to me, and I can put my email in the chat in a second. All right, that's it for me. So I'll just stop sharing, and then if there's any questions.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Brian. Were there any questions from anybody, or comments, thoughts? Joe?
Great presentation, Brian. You know, I don't think people here, a lot of them don't know how, you know, how expert you are at this whole space, and yeah, I really appreciated your comments on how hard it is to bring technology to farmers and so on. So keep up the good work. I really enjoyed that. A couple of comments from my perspective. This sector, I think because of its structure, and farmers are remote, and small businesses, has always lagged 2, 3, 4 years behind kind of the cutting edge. But if you look back to your horses and car analogy, eventually they do adopt. It might look a little bit different. So it can be really frustrating, especially for tech companies that are on a tight budget or timeline, and you just have to earn the business, almost a customer at a time. So that would be my only comment. And I use the whole internet. When it started, farmers didn't have computers 20, 25 years ago when we started. And if I had a nickel for everyone that said they would never use the internet, I'd be a lot wealthier than I am now. So I just chose to ignore it, and then just showed it, educated, listened to customers, and then eventually all of a sudden they were on it, and they were on their phone. And now if you try to take away access to the markets and weather and all those tools and software. And so I see robotics and AI the same way. It's not, the technology is so powerful and can do so much. And plus, we're just in the early days. You didn't go from an iPhone, cellular phone, to an iPhone, 14 overnight. So, so keep up the good work, and we need you, kind of breaking down those obstacles that you highlighted. So good job on that.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, and that's why in the beginning I sort of said that too. Like, is there actually a problem? Like, are we just being impatient on this? Or it's
impatience is good, right? It keeps us getting up in the morning
necessary.
And jumping online and doing stuff like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, also I don't think any of us would actually say, nah, I think maybe nah, you won't see tech going out there. No, you won't. Like, that's crazy. Come on. It's happened historically, and it'll keep happening. So
I wouldn't mind asking you one last little quick question for everybody else. You mentioned AI using, to do your tell me what a robot might look like. How impactful, say 1 to 10, do you think AI is going to be on agriculture in general over the next, 20 years?
next 20 years? Oh,
Well, just 10
15?
years in.
16, 20? Yeah, well, just think about it, like every month is something different, right? It's so hard to keep up with. Like if you are into any of the actual technical side of these different models people are building, it's I have a really hard time trying to picture a year from now what it's going to look like, right? And so I think it'd just be ubiquitous.
I think it's going to be one of the biggest things to hit since the internet. Like every day I'm amazed, as same as you.
Yeah.
People showing me stuff, and I'm like, holy crap, that's going to be.
It's scary, right?
How do we wield that sucker?
A year ago, I'm laughing at it, going, "Oh, I can't spell strawberry correctly." And then here I am today. I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing what I thought I wouldn't be doing, which is really using
crunching all that data, yeah, and sensors on everything." So, thanks, Brian. Good job today.
Yeah,
see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, cheers, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. We had a question come through in the chat. Thanks for the presentation, Brian. What do you think of general purpose humanoid robotics in ag?
Yeah, this like alludes to like Joe's last comment. I feel like a year ago I'd be like, oh, that stuff's like kind of neat, but I don't know if we're really gonna get there. Like that's gonna be expensive. And and Figure, if you're aware of Figures, what's been happening there, people have been picking on them saying, hey, you're supposedly working with BMW, but is it really? Because they said it's just one robot. And so I'm actually trying to avoid feeling like, well, look right now and think of the challenges now. And yeah, it's going to be a while. It's hard to say whether it really will take off. It's just cost, right? But I know some of those companies have been talking about like, yeah, you can have your personal butler robot for $300 a month. Well, if we can actually hit that kind of thing, then yeah, maybe it's actually going to be not crazy at all to envision that. And that flies in the face of changing. That's kind of the opposite of changing the infrastructure, making the plants move to the robot. If you can make that humanoid robot and it's cost effective compared to human labor, well, then you're almost done. Why bother changing anything? You just parachute those guys in. So I'll keep it at that though, Kit, and happy to continue talking at some point in the future though, because it seems like there's a bunch of people with questions. So
thanks, Brian. Yeah, we've got Caesar, Christian, and Ian. And then I'll cut it off after you three, just in the interest of getting through the last agenda items. So 3 more quick questions, and then we'll move on. Caesar, go ahead.
Question, it's a comment. I used to be part of an industry that was very eager to implement any new flashy thing that was out there. I was in vertical farming before. When we built the first farm, like it was, I think we did it to an excess. We overly automated, and that had a lot of challenges. I think you hit the nail on the head there, like what the challenges are. The main one for us at that point was reliability. Like when you have these very fancy machines that are also not necessarily reliable, but your critical process depend on them, and a sensor goes down, a sensor gets wet and gets hit with a tray, and then your whole process goes down. And in farming, like timing matters a lot. And it's one sensor that is very specialized that comes from Europe, and you need an engineer to replace it. And then that means your whole farm is down for 2 weeks. That can literally take the whole business down. You can't afford that. And then it's a very high cost to be an early adopter of the technology as well. And farming is a very low margin business. We all know that. And very few people will be willing to take that risk early on when the technology is still not proven, and put their entire business at risk, and maybe it doesn't work, and the ROI is not there yet. I think it will be in the future. So it is challenging in this industry. I think we don't have sometimes the R&D resources that other industries might have, but the potential is there for sure.
Yeah, great comments. I'll just say 100% agree. Yeah, everything you said.
Thanks, Caesar. Christian.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. It's interesting, the thought of humanoid robots, and it's a game of margins, right? So a different form factor that could do the same thing. Don't walk a humanoid robot up and down your lines when you can fly a drone for a fraction of the cost and time type of deal. But I was curious about the cucumber example that you put out. Do you know, is there an existing tension between trying to grow to optimize robot interface with the produce itself versus the yield, the taste, all of the other attributes that you might want for it? I had never considered, can we engineer the actual produce to interface better with the robotic sort of angle to it?
Yeah, I do know that some of these companies I've talked to that are on the seed side, like they just treat it sort of like, do you want, we could try to make leaves more upright, so you
Yeah.
can get more of a sort of a forest feel to the crop, or yeah, we can try to
Tomatoes
get-
that could be sucked off easier from the vine. Like
Yeah,
it's
and
an
I
interesting
jokingly,
thought.
I jokingly asked, like, could you build like Wi-Fi into this fruit and you can just tell it to fall off and maybe
Yeah.
walk over the, no. But so it's hard to say whether in the trait development, the genetics, if there's a conflict between making it good for automation versus the yield or other things you want or need, like disease, resistance and so on. But what I will say is, I think probably anyone on this call who's playing around with a robot that's out there doing weeding, harvesting, whatever, if the crop is less dense, it's going to be easier, right? If you can space the plants out more, it's going to be easier. Now, the problem with that, though, is you space the plants out more, then per acre, you have lower yield. So you have lower revenue. And when I first started at Vineland, that was king. Yield. How many kilos per square meter or whatever, tons per acre. And so that number was always sort of like, that was the number everyone talked about. And so I talked to some growers and I said, do you guys get around, get together sometimes, even though you might be competitors, you're still kind of friends too, depending on the industry, I think. Do you get together and do you kind of say, well, I got 200 this year. Well, I got 205, and is it a pride issue? And what if I told you, I got a tech for you, but you're going to have to space out the plants, so your yield's going to go down. But yes, lower revenue, yes, but your costs are going to go down and your profit margin is going to be higher. Do you think is that good? Or is it still sort of like, but wait, no, but yield? They're businesses. So they're like, I don't care. I don't need to brag about the 200. I will brag about my new truck. I will brag about paying off my mortgage faster. I will brag about expanding. So I will just say to that point that I think that you can absolutely sacrifice some of these other things, as it's a cost thing. These are businesses. So as long as at the end of the day, your profit margin is higher, you're good.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
Dude.
And then Ian for the last question.
Sure, I'll try and keep this quick. I really enjoyed your presentation, Brian. And I have a question kind of on that paleo futures topic. I haven't been in this space for a very long time, but anytime there's been a panel, an event I've been to, I've tried to sort of pop in and see, because it's just kind of interesting. And I feel like I've seen a lot of the same challenges or the same problems come up at every panel for the last 5 or 6 years that I've gone to. And I'm curious, from your perspective, are there tasks or collections of activities where like it's just not working? It doesn't seem like it's ever going to work, and like maybe we need to stop focusing energy on that and shift our attention to different types of tasks or categories of activities.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I want to just say no. Like, I'm a researcher, PhD scientist, inventor, maybe at heart, and I don't like to give up on stuff, and I don't like to say that. And then, to Joe's point, like the AI evolution stuff, like I'm learning to not think, yeah, that's never going to work, because it's really crazy what AI is doing. And then when that follows into robotics, it's going to be really game changing, and that can happen faster than Elon Musk talks about autonomous cars happening, which is always like 3 years away, right? For the past 15 years or something. So I feel like short answer, no, but I will say this is, if you look at some of those successful companies that are out there, there's one I had on that slide, 4 growers with tomato harvesting. Now, I don't know how well they're doing exactly with revenue and sales, but they had a great approach to doing it. A while back, there was in a greenhouse, de-leafing robot that came out. from a combination of Priva and a company called Actinian. They joined forces, called it Octiva. Priva is a huge name in horticulture in greenhouse. So that felt really promising. And then it disappeared. And I heard through the grapevine it's because they were accidentally cutting plants down. And they still have it somewhere out there, but you keep not seeing it. But yet they are showing off a ton of marketing info and examples of their UV treatment robot. Because that's not touching the plants, it's not risking cutting anything down. So that company is selling that thing like crazy. I mean, I say selling isn't marketing it. I don't know how much they're doing in terms of sales, but that's what they're focusing on, right? Burrow is a great example. We've got a robot that does one general thing really, really well, right? So when it comes to touching the plants, that's where you get into trouble. That's where it becomes really challenging to do, but not, I don't think, impossible. So I don't want to rule out anything, but if there is kind of a yes side to your question, as an answer to your question, it's once you're touching the plants to harvest, de-leaf, weed, whatever, now you're running into a lot more challenges because you what these things can do combined with this, and this is really hard to beat. But we're actually getting there, I think, faster than we think.
Excellent. Thank you everybody for your questions. Brian, thanks so much for your presentation and taking the time to be here this morning. We really appreciate it.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, so moving into upcoming events, we don't have any new ones on the list for this week. However, for next week, I will make sure to add the Vineland demo day for June 20th. So I'll throw that up there with the registration link for next week. We don't have any new funding announcements or opportunities for this week. So we'll head into the roundtable. The University of Guelph is still looking for some folks to fill out their survey. Is there anybody from Guelph here who is involved in that and would like to speak on it for a minute, just to let folks know what it is?
Thank you. Good morning, Dan. Yeah, this is Athar
Morning.
from School of Environmental Design and Rural Development. Yeah, so we're going to we have actually launched a survey with collaboration of Office of Research. My colleague Tyler Zemlak is also helping on that. And this is a project funded by Food from Thought, funding part. And what we are looking for in that survey is what we call social media discontinuation. We are talking about AI here. So there are, different kind of artificial intelligence, and large language model is one of the AI piece which really works for knowledge mobilization, right? And we have seen a trend about there are people somehow discontinuing a particular platform, maybe joining other platform, and people, there are a little bit of different way that people, especially in agriculture community, are using social media. So we like to understand how, this new trend is being mobilized, and what are the reasons for, that mobilization. Is it because of the kind of discussion we have, often polarization on many topics, or related to misinformation or whatnot? So this survey target, broadly speaking, agriculture stakeholders, farmers, as well as agriculture advisors, right, who use social media, and then also researcher, who use social media for communication and advising other farmers or stakeholders. Yeah, so it would be great to, if you can chime in. It will take 20 minutes, and we are happy to also provide first 40 folks as with some gift certificate of $25. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And then lastly, I'll pass things over to Bridget, who wanted to speak to the group.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. And good presentation today, Brian. So just to follow up to Brian's point on the event on the 20th, that actually is a Friday that event is taking place at Vineland. So we were discussing the potential of maybe hosting a working group meeting in person that day at Vineland. And I wanted to just throw that out to the group because we're a little bit more into the growing season. I would just want to have a bit of a show of hands of who might be interested in attending an in-person working group meeting. We most likely would still have it published over Zoom as well, but we would host it in person, similar to what we did with the one at the Grove. So just is there a show of hands of people that might be interested in coming in person? Awesome. Yeah, thumbs up, hands up in the air is perfect. Thanks, everybody. Okay, awesome. So yeah, we will move forward with plans for that then. It looks like we've got some interest from the group, and then we'll provide further details as we get them. And we'll share that out through the agenda for next week, most likely.
Perfect. Thanks, Bridget. Thanks everybody for letting us know. With that, I think that brings us to the end of our time here. As always, check out our postings of articles here on what's going on in the industry. Brian, once again, thanks so much for presenting this morning. We appreciate your time. Everybody have themselves a great Friday and a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
All right,
Thanks.
take care, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.